Well, good evening. Yesterday when I said that I was going to do this video today, completely slipped my mind that today was my wife's birthday. And so I wasn't going to take the time out from her birthday to do another video, but she is so passionate about this that she said, nope, got to do it, got to move forward, and she's actually shooting the video. So thank you, honey, I appreciate that. So yesterday I informed you that last Friday I received a letter to me, aren't I lucky, from Mark Ghilarducci. I think that's how you pronounce him. Mark Ghilarducci, is that how you, how about if I just call you Mark? Is that okay? I'll just call you Mark. So Mark sent a letter to me in response to an email that I sent to Governor Newsom and California Attorney General Xavier Becerra. And I'm not going to read the entire email, but this is the email that I sent on Wednesday to Governor Newsom and Attorney General Xavier Becerra. And so just let me read you the opening part, because that's really what is germane here. Dear Governor Newsom, nice enough, huh? By what authority do you control how counties move forward? Your current state of emergency declaration must be rescinded because the conditions required for a state of emergency no longer exist. State law is clear. The governor, quoting now, shall proclaim the termination of a state of emergency at the earliest possible date that conditions warrant. We're well past that point. So when I wrote that last Wednesday, we had 10 people in our hospitals. Yesterday when I recorded, we had 9 in our hospitals. Hospital capacity, by the way, 668 staffed beds just in the south part of the county. 9 people yesterday, 4 of whom were in intensive care. Today, happy to report we're down to 8 people in the hospitals and only 2 in intensive care. And since we've added no new deaths, that means that 2 of our residents of Placer County who were in intensive care have come out of intensive care. So obviously great news. Great news we should all be celebrating because we're tracking the right direction. We're putting this thing in our rearview mirror, which is why this letter that I got back from Mark, the director of the Office of Emergency Services. Now, bear in mind, of course, that my email was addressed to the governor and to the attorney general because I believe this is a matter of state law. And conveniently enough, Mark goes ahead and addresses that for me because you see, when Mark starts his letter, he actually quotes the state law, Government Code Section 8625 and 8558, which empower the governor to declare a state of emergency. And if you recall yesterday's video, we went over that in some detail, but simply put, Section 8625 has 2 requirements. He, the governor, finds that circumstances described in Subdivision B, we'll get there, Subdivision B of Section 8558 exists. So that's condition number 1. We have to meet this threshold over here. And number 2, he, the governor, finds that local authority is inadequate to cope with the emergency. 8 people in our hospital, 668 bed capacity. I think we're able to cope with the emergency now, Governor. I think we got it. Again, reminder, the first condition says that, listing the various things that can cause a state of emergency, epidemic being one of them, which by reason of their magnitude are or are likely to be beyond the control of the services, personnel, equipment, and facilities of a single county, city and county, or city. Now, Mark in his letter to me goes on to quote me and my vote, and that's what this nice 2-page letter, but with like a full page of footnotes where he's quoting my votes. And it's interesting because he's right. These were my votes and what we did on March 3rd and on March 9th. And in fact, on March 9th, over 2 months ago, I did, in fact, vote to ratify the proclamations declaring a state of emergency. Because on March 9th, we met the definition. Because the definition does read, which by reason of their magnitude are or are likely to be. And if you'll all remember back on March 9th, we were listening to projections that said we were going to have 2 million people dead in this country. We were going to overwhelm our healthcare system. So yeah, on March 9th, Mark, I did think we were going to be in a state of emergency, which is why I voted for a state of emergency 2 months ago. We're talking about today, Mark. So Mark goes on to point out my votes in support of this, but here's the really interesting part. This is the part that I think at some point Mark might wish he didn't write. You see, at the end of Mark reminding me what my votes are, Mark writes this: Mark, the director of the Office of Emergency Services, I caution you, Kirk, Lowell County Supervisor, that improvident rhetoric in your missive may jeopardize your county's access to disaster relief and other funding meant to mitigate the effects of emergencies. He cautions me, as an individual citizen and elected representative of our board, of our county, that my rhetoric might jeopardize funding. You know what's interesting? Attorney General Barr, U.S. Attorney General Barr, has been looking for a nexus. He's been looking for a reason to warn governors about their overreach. And Mark, you might have just given it to him for two reasons. Number one, Mark, you're telling me I can't speak my mind? That if I, as a citizen and an elected county supervisor, speak what's on my mind, I might jeopardize funding for my citizens? Well, Mark, since an awful lot of that state money that comes to us at counties first came from the federal government, you are asserting control over federal dollars meant for emergency relief in my county. There, Attorney General Barr, is your federal nexus. The other thing I find beautifully ironic is that on this very day where I read these words to you, where Mark has taken upon himself to admonish me, to warn me that my rhetoric might cost my county money, Governor Gavin Newsom, who has made a career out of flipping the double middle finger at Donald Trump over immigration, declaring us a sanctuary state, Governor Gavin Newsom has just gone hat in hand to the federal government to say we and a few other states want $1 trillion in bailout money. Mark, you did a really nice job of putting this straight into the federal government's hands. But don't worry, folks, if you think that Mark's letter to me is going to silence me on this issue, I think you and I both know better. Until next time, y'all take care.